Hello everybody and welcome to Ontario International Airport here in California, and we are taking a first look today at the about to be released, at the time of the recording of this video anyway, new Super 27 from Flight Sim Studios. And this thing, that if you know anything about the my love for the 727 already, it is great. But this thing is taking it to a whole new level, and for those of you that have been desiring some more cutting-edge navigation options, I think you're going to be very happy with the Super 27 as well. Now, why is it called the Super 27? What's different about it? So aside from some of the things you're going to see in the flight deck here in just a moment, the biggest difference comes with the engine. So it's still the same 727, 200 frame, and all of that is basically the same. The difference comes on the number 1 and 3 pod engines. You can't see number 3, it's on the other side of the fuselage there. Has the newer JT8D 217 engines. The original 727 100 and 200 variants had JT8Ds that were in the original 100 variant category, and were usually referred to as either 9s. Well, actually, there's a whole series of them. There's 3s, 3As, 9, 9A, 5A, all kinds of stuff. But the ones that FSS simulated for our 727-200 have JT8D 9s on them. And eventually they'd get up to as high as the 15s and the 17s, and so on and so forth. So this aircraft has its center engine. It does not have a newer engine on it, but it is running the 17. So this is the JT8D-17 engine, and the 217 is a variant from roughly 20 years later. The original JT8Ds for the 727 were certified in 1963, and the 217s were certified somewhere around 1980, and were primarily used on the McDonnell Douglas MD-80s series aircraft. So we actually have, they're a little bit bigger, you'll notice, than the original engines on the original 727 that we have in the sim, and they produce more power, obviously. The 9s that we're used to, I believe, produce somewhere in the vicinity of 14 to 15,000 pounds of thrust, something like that, per engine. The 17, I think, produces right around 17,000 pounds of thrust. But the 217 produces about 20,000 pounds of thrust per engine. So that's an additional 6,000 pounds between the two engines on the pods that we have now with the Super 27. So hence the name Super 27, because it's got a lot more power. Which means that for the same amount of general weight, obviously the engines add a little bit of extra weight, and there probably some a little additional weight in the aircraft here and there, but it's minuscule compared to the amount of thrust increase we're getting. So that's the big difference. The other difference is we're all going to see what we might call under the hood in the avionics suite here, and we're going to take a look at those in just a second. What we're going to do today, this is a kind of a first look slash tutorial-ish kind of. What I'm hoping to do is, when the 727 releases, probably within the next week, is have a video available for you guys. This one is that video, by the way, that will at least get you guys up and running with the 727. I'm currently working on a giant advanced tutorial series for the 7.2, which will now include the Super as well, which this is good timing then, and all that will be released hopefully within the next month. But until that drops, I want to make sure you guys have some way of really diving in and enjoying this aircraft. So you can use this as a first look. I've taken it up once already, just briefly, kind of hand flew it around and made sure I understood the various autopilot modes, because the autopilot's a little bit different now, and got my head wrapped around it enough to where I can teach it to you guys, just enough to be dangerous. We'll dive a lot deeper in the advanced tutorial series, but this will get you up and running and going. Obviously, you can read the manual, as we all, I'm sure love to do, and there's a little bit of intricacies here that may change to release. A reminder, this is a beta aircraft. This is a beta build that the developers have been kind enough to let me have access to. So this may not, things that you see here and little bugs and stuff that I point out, I have been pointing out to the developers as well. These bugs or idiosyncrasies, whatever you want to refer to them as, may or may not exist in the final product. So just be aware of that. This is not what necessarily will go to market. Hopefully they'll squash a few of these little weird things in the meantime. And obviously, when it does release, there will still be bugs. There's bugs in everything that releases. So that's just the nature of the beast. So, but let's go ahead and climb on board here. I just realized I could do this little sleight of hand here. Let's see if it works. Now I'm in cockpit mode. Of course, now I have to change my profile so I can walk normally. We can walk on board the aircraft, and we're actually in the aircraft mode. We can move around. I thought it was kind of cool. Anyway, I'm using this is Microsoft 2020, by the way. I'm using Chase Plane and Flow and all of that, so that's why we're still in here. I've already got the cargo door open. We don't have any power in the aircraft, though. Like I said, I'm gonna kind of take you through booting up the aircraft because I'm sure there's some of you that may be looking at the 727 for the first time now that the Super is released. You do need one of the base 727s to use this product. So it's not a full standalone product. It is going to be a cost. I don't think they've released exactly what that cost will be yet. But you will need either the 727-200 freighter, which was the original thing they released, or the 727-200 passenger. You do not have to own both. However, if you only buy the freighter version and then buy the Super, you will only have access to the freighter version of the Super, and vice versa. If you only buy the passenger base, you'll only have access to the passenger version of the Super. I feel that should be fairly self-explanatory, but it, bears saying anyway. So if you have both the 200 freighter and passenger, and you get the 727-200 Super add-on, it will give you access to both. You don't have to buy the Super twice. It's one add-on, and it will affect whatever the base package you have, because the flight deck and most of the systems and most of the base are built on those base models with obviously extra features that come with the Super, and that's why you're paying for more add-ons. Anyway, with all of those disclaimers out of the way, let's go ahead and just kind of talk through how do we operate this aircraft. For those of you that are new to the 727, again, 3-engine aircraft. We have an overhead panel that is maybe a little bit simpler in some of the features that it has compared to some of the newer jets. But that's because you also have this very intimidating flight engineers panel. Newer modern jets took all of these controls and either automated them with computers or put them up here and got rid of this station. So the 707 has an FE panel, the 727 with the FE panel, older versions of the 74 have the FE panel, but pretty much everything else, this does not exist. This is no longer a station. So now you can fly this just like before. There's a little, where is it at? There's this little phone right here, which kind of feels, considering they do this paper EFB, which I absolutely love, this feels a little out of place. But there's a little phone, and that controls, or allows you to control, the automated flight engineer, the AFE, which is how I'll refer to him from now on, the AFE. So if this intimidates you, you can totally have the AFE just do all the AFE things. I would encourage you, though, if you really want to learn this bird, learn what the AFE is doing and learn how to do a lot of it yourself. I personally do not use the AFE, and I will not be using the AFE in this video because in order to teach you as much as I can, I don't want someone else doing things in the background that no one knows why. So we're just not going to use it, but feel free. There's no shame in it, unless you're me, in which case I feel like there's shame, but that's for me. Anyway, so let's take a look at some of the things that are changes that you might have seen, if for those of you that are used to the 727 originally. We have these new electronic displays for the ADI and the HSI. Excuse me. We have that. We've got, just like before, we have the GNS-XLS. This can also be swapped out to a SIVA INS or a Garmin 530 or the 750 PMS, something like that. Anyway, it's a paid add-on for that one that I don't use. But there's a couple different options you can do here. This is new, though. Normally there was just a dummy weather radar here. You can now add, again, only with the GNS-XLS, you can add this little guy, which is a moving map display. There is a moving map you can summon in the GNS-XLS. However, it's cumbersome because then you can't see anything else on here. And so now you can operate this and have a moving map, and a nicer one at that. So that's kind of a cool option. The weather radar still does not work. If you choose the weather radar option, it's just for looks. I don't know if at any point FSS has plans to add that in and make that functional, I think that would be really cool. But at the end of the day, a lot of the weather radar implementations that we have in Microsoft aren't even that useful. Some of them are. Most of them, I think, are not. And so we're all still surviving the sim skies without it. So I don't know if it's the biggest priority in the world, but I'll leave that to debates by experts for other things. We also have an electronic vertical speed indicator, which is also going to double as a TCAS indicator now, so that's cool. We had a TCAS switch in the 200 before, but no way to view traffic or get alerts. So I think it was more just like sending out our TCAS signal and then hoping other planes would avoid us, I guess. I'm not really sure what that was doing, but hey, it was there. Anyway, but now we can actually see radar aircraft returns and get not only traffic avoidance alerts, but also resolution alerts. So that's cool. The autopilot has changed as well. So you'll notice the original autopilot controls are down here. It's much more simplified down here. Basically, the only things you need to realize here is you have a yaw damper switch. These two are not labeled, by the way, so you just have to know what these are. The yaw damper on the left, the autopilot switch on the right. Yaw damper obviously can be engaged anytime. The autopilot can only be engaged in flight and will automatically command the yaw damper up if you turn on the autopilot. So this side links to this. This does not link to that. It's a one-way kind of thing. You have a roll and a pitch control for manual stuff. I'll go over this in the air. And then these two buttons right here, actually, they push, but they're not functional. They don't actually do anything. They're not simulated in the moment. It's autopilot transfer and turbulence mode, but they don't do anything. So they're there. You can push them if you want, if it makes you feel better. Maybe as a fidget switch. I don't know, but they're just there. The rest of the autopilot controls, though, are up here. These are the different modes. The mode control panel, as we're used to, the MCP, is basically right here. And then some of the controls for those autopilot things like the course and heading knobs are down here. Altitude is up here. Now, altitude can also go down here. We have some options in the paper EFB if you go over to options. So here's where we can change. You notice these are all grayed out because I have the MX-20 on here. If I switch to weather radar, that's a dummy. But now, I'm sorry, the weather radar doesn't do that. If I turn the EFIS instruments off, which is these things, if I send these back to analog, you notice our autopilot goes back to what we're used to as well. So basically, you can fly the Super 27 with all the old school analog stuff you want. The only things that will carry over really are the newer EPR gauges and more powerful engines, and this guy if you want it. So at that point, it's basically just a regular 727-200 with more powerful engines. Oh, and you get the TCAS anyway. But once you do that, you can revert back to the Civa INS. You lose your moving map, obviously, because it has the old school little, again, dummy weather radar. You can do the GNS-530, which gives you the dummy weather radar, but the not quite as old school looking one, or the GTN-750. This one, if you want to fully use this, there's this is a paid add-on that I think you can use some modes of this out of the box without paying for it, but to get full functionality, you have to pay for the add-on from not FSS. FSS just implemented their 750 into that, so see documentation about how to do that if that's something you desire. I don't use it, so there you go. And then GTN-XI, maybe that's an option that got pulled because it's still there, but it's ghosted, so I don't know what brings that back. Yeah, I don't know. So, anyway, whatever. But if you want the EFIS instruments, the only option is going to be the GNS-XLS because this is tied. This is actually, so one of the big things that came up with the 200 is because FMS options in a 727 are all a retrofit. And so there was no way to tie the GPS systems into the old analog instruments because they were never designed to do that. And so people were complaining, well, why doesn't my flight director command blah, 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 and why doesn't this drive the CDI needle? Well, because it's not going to, because it can't. It can drive the autopilot, but that's about all it can do, and it drives it in a separate mode with a GPS switch and the whole thing. So now, with the updated EFIS instruments, this thing can talk to these things and give flight direction and VNAV guidance and all kinds of things. So with that sophistication, though, comes very specific tie-in. So if you want more generic type GPSs, not a kind of more custom FMS designed for this. And again, not to say this was only designed for the 727, but then you're stuck with this particular one. So that is what it is. If you really want to use the GTN 750, fine, but you're going to be using analog instruments, and that's just life. All right. Anyway, moving on. Let's see. Anything else that's different here? Down here, we have some controls for controlling those EFIS screens. This really is all the same for the most part. Your ADF radios are up here, your COM radios here, and then your nav radios down here. Really, there's no change on the FE panel except for the fact that we have digital fuel gauges now, which is really kind of cool. And some of the switches look a little bit different right here. But really, this panel is the only change. Everything else is really a direct over from the original. The other difference now, actually, is in the cargo area. We have an empty cargo. So we don't have the horses and the stock, you know, kind of whatever. I don't know. As of right now, when I've loaded cargo, nothing shows up in here. So I don't know if FSS is planning on doing what a lot of other devs do, in which when you put cargo on the aircraft, it will fill this in with containers or something. But as of right now, at least as far as I can tell, nothing gets added in here. So while this may be less immersion braking when you're on the ground and loading, in flight when you're hauling cargo and you look back here, this may be more immersion braking. So, you know, take what you want. But just be aware that is a change that I noticed as well. And you should be aware of that, since that's the point of this video, is what is different and what is not. Let's see here. As we go through, let's go ahead and start up the aircraft, and I'll show you how that works now that we've got kind of our options set. Some other things that you can do, you can sync the altimeters. So there's 3 altimeters on this thing. One here, the standby, which I've lost. Where'd the standby go? Am I dumb? Where did the standby... That's number 2. That's number 1. I could have sworn the standby was here somewhere. It used to be right down here until they moved the clock. Hang on. Do we not have a standby in the, did they, that might be an oversight. I'm going to have to ask them about that. Yeah. You should have a standby still somewhere. I'm not sure where it's supposed to go, but I may also be looking right at it right now and not even realize it, and that may be on me. So if that's the case, whatever. But I'll let them know about that, because I feel like with the EFIS we should still have a standby altimeter somewhere. Because I think legally you're supposed to have a standby. We have the standby horizon. So, and we have 2, I mean, they're not really a standby then, because those are tied to the, I don't know. Anyway, whatever. That's a problem for another time, I guess. We'll figure that out later. That's fun. Joys of a first look video. Okay. So, we have 2 altimeters, apparently. One here and then one here, and they will sync. Captain FO. I usually don't sync the standby, because then it's, you know, more likely that you're going to set those 2 right there, and then as long as that one sets over there, great. Let's see, alt selector type. This is what I was talking about, the altitude selector. This is where we're used to it right here, but it kind of defaults to this position with the super, which I don't like, because one, it's tinier, it's harder to see, and there's still room for it because there's just a blank plate there now. So why not put it up there where we're all used to it and can see it easily? So I prefer to have it back on the center pedestal. You can do what you want. GSX auto mode. Again, if you're using GSX and you want things to happen more automatically, turn that on. I'd prefer not to do it in auto. I'll do stuff kind of more manually with GSX. Comm spacing. If you're flying on VATSIM, it's very necessary to fly with 8.33 because you're going to need those frequencies that don't exist otherwise. So that's just what it's going to be. And if you're doing that, you can't have the analog. So the analog, actually, I'm not going to demonstrate. Well, I guess I can demonstrate it because the analog will still show up. So the analog, you get the kind of flipper style numbers, which are cool and feels more authentic, but again, it doesn't have room for the spacing. And they're going to show up black right now because I don't have any power in the airplane. I think that's almost all the options that you need to be aware of. And then stuff in the front here is just panel state stuff. So cold and dark, GPU, APU, cockpit view, are you flying from the left to the right seat? Clock time, do you want it to be UTC, universal coordinated, time coordinated, or local? The auto throttle switch, which I believe is going to show up here. Yeah. So if you want to fly with an auto throttle, you really don't need to, guys. It is very easy to fly this thing. And you're really only supposed to use this in cruise. The auto throttle in 727 is very crude. It was really only designed to be used in cruise anyway, and in cruise you don't need it. I'll show you how to set the throttles based on your fuel flow, and you'll be fine. You won't need to touch anything. So yeah, don't turn this on. Be a man. Fly your plane. And cockpit callouts, co-pilot callouts rather, so like V1, rotate kind of stuff. Winglets, you can have winglets or not. I prefer no winglets on the 727 because I'm a purist. But again, you do you, boo. I don't think they have any bearing on the flight envelope, so or the fuel. You know, I think they're just looks at this point. So if it's just a visual thing, I don't think it's doing anything for you. And then you can do various doors open here, various ground things, cones, chocks, engine covers, ground power, boarding stair, that kind of stuff. Okay, let's put the EFB away, the paper EFB as I call it. And let's go ahead and start the power up sequence. So to turn power on this aircraft, we would come up here and check the battery first. We're going to look, make sure we have good voltage on the battery. There are no failures on this aircraft, so a lot of the things I'm going to talk about while we're going through this are really just to try and be as realistic as possible, while understanding that I'm flying a 3-man aircraft with 1 person, and also that nothing can actually go wrong because there's no failures. So it's a little simplistic in that sense, so we don't have to worry about actually blowing anything up. But, you know, hey, let's treat it like, you know, we mean it. You know, that's what we're doing. We're flight simmers, hey, after all. So battery switch to on. That gives us a little bit of power. And at this point, if you had ground power, you could connect that. That would connect right here. You'd get a little light showing that AC was connected from the ground, and you could switch this to on. Ground service is for powering the cabin and some other features without having to turn on the entire flight deck. So as pilots, we don't ever mess with that. We would just go straight to on. We're not going to do the external power, though. We're going to go to APU. APU control is back here. And first of all, you want to do a fire test. Hear the bell, get the light. We're going to reset once. Reset once cancels the bell. Reset again resets the system. If you don't do the second reset, you will have trouble starting your APU. APU start switch to on, and then click up to start, and it will switch back to on, and you'll start to hear it start up. The APU in this aircraft is in the wing. Actually, it's in the landing gear bay, but the exhaust is in the wing. You can see it right here, coming out of the little wing spot. And because it's in the wheel well, love the sounds. There's the the back end of the APU and the exhaust, and on the other side you can see APU stuff here. That's the inlet right there. It's not going outside of the plane. It's just picking up air from inside the wheel well, which means the air intake for the APU is this wheel well door. So, can you start the APU in the air with the gear up? No. It will be starved for air. In the sim, can you do it? Yeah, probably. But should you do it? No. So, yeah, APU is only authorized on the ground in the 727. You have 3 engines, so you probably are never going to be in a situation where you flame out all 3. Unless you run out of fuel, in which case you don't have any fuel to start the APU anyway. All right, so APU is started. We have good exhaust gas temperature in the green range right here. We're not showing any amps because it's not running yet. Over here, you have an essential power switch. It defaults to APU, and this standby failure, or the source failure, shows you, not standby failure. These are not linked, but it always throws me off. Source failure is red, meaning that our essential power from the APU is not actually doing anything because we haven't connected the generator. You can see here the AC volts. We're doing about 110 volt. No, sorry, 100 and a little over 115. If that's 110, that's 120. So it's about 116 volts AC. And we're doing right around 400 hertz or 400 cycles per second, which is standard for aviation, 400 hertz. And so that's good. So we can come over here and close the generator bus tie switch. Now, that thump that you just heard right before everything kind of turned on, Every once in a while, you'll hit this close, the light will go out, and you will hear no thump. If you hear no thump, hit that again until you hear the thump. If you don't hear the thump, nothing actually happened. That thump is the relay kicking in, and whether that's just because of a weird programming code deal or whatever it is, sometimes it doesn't take. So always wait for the thump. No thump, no go. So you see our failure source light is out now, so that's good, and all of our other lights and switches have now come on onto the aircraft. Now, the other gotcha in a 727 is the radio masters. We actually have radio master switches that will control our EFIS displays, and while our radio displays are on, our radios themselves will not operate. And so those are back here. This circuit breaker panel, nothing is modeled in here that you can mess with, except master switch right there. So always make sure to flip those guys on. That will turn on. It's going to be much more obvious in the Super because that will activate your EFIS displays. They're going to go through this little boot up sequence. So give them a moment, and there they go. We have our more new digital displays. Down here, we can single click the on button on our GNS-XLS. It's going to go into a self-test mode. And I'm going to switch this stupid weather radar to the that MX-20 thing, or whatever it's called. Wait a minute. What did I do? Why can't I have that? I could have it earlier. What happened? What did I change? No! Why did that go away? That should not have gone away. This off. This on. Oh! I just have to click on it. Okay, I'm learning. So that's kind of a goof. Even though it's selected and there, if it's grayed out, just click on the GNS-XLS again to tell it, yes, I am using that, and then you can select that. Okay, good. Learn something new. On this guy, there's a little on-off switch right here. You just click that guy, and it will start to boot up as well, I think. I may have to hold it. I don't remember. I feel like I have to hold it. There we go. Yes. Hold it down for a little bit until you see it come up. You're going to get this kind of little initial display. Just click the little button under map, and that will take us to your map. And it's going to ask you about the current baro, which I believe is 2993, so I'm just going to say OK. That will pop up every 30 minutes to have you confirm the baro. I don't exactly know why it's really that intent on knowing the baro all the time, but apparently it is. So, whatever. So be it. Then it tells us right there what the baro is. What our current altitude is, and I guess that's why it wants to know, because it wants to show us altitude information as well. It's saying 985, yeah, that's about right, that's what the altimeter is showing there. And then zoom in and stuff like that. So to use this guy real fast, we'll just kind of talk through this. So should be fairly self-explanatory. In, zooms in, out, zooms out. Pan gives you these arrows over here, and I can pan the map over, and I can pan the map back. And what's cool is it generates this line to the center of your screen to your aircraft. So you always, if I was to pan way far away and go, ah crap, where's my aircraft? How do I get back? I just follow the line. Follow the line right back to the aircraft. And it's going off at a weird angle because I have it in track up right now instead of north up, which is what it was before. Which is basically the same thing in this orientation based on how we're kind of sitting, but it changes the nature of it just ever so slightly. As you can see there. Now, info apparently doesn't do anything other than just resets. So once you get off the pan, it'll just snap back to your aircraft. So I don't know what info does. Now, when you go to the menu, the pan light turns on, which I feel should be turning on the info light. I'm going to ask them about that. It's not a big deal, but it just feels weird to me. But here's where you can change the track up arc, which is what I have right now. You can have a track up 360, so it's zoomed out a little bit more. You can have a direct track up. You can have a north up, which right now is almost the same thing because of our orientation of aircraft, and then just track up. I like the track up also with the arch in it, so that's how I'm going to do it. And if you go to the next page, you can then also turn on and off various things to declutter the screen. So airports, VRs, NDBs, intersections, airspace. Next page. It gives us the option for, it says low and high airways are on right now, but I don't see them. And clicking them doesn't seem to do anything. So I'm not sure about that one. That one doesn't, it says they're on, but I beg to differ. So I'm not sure about that. Not that, again, that really matters that much, but, you know, hey, if you're going to have it, you know, have it. You can't turn off the water roads boundaries or on for that matter. And then next page just takes you back to this and it just cycles through. All right, to get back off of that, just hit the menu enter button again and it'll go back to the custom thing and you're all good to go. This will display, there's a route that was previously loaded in here, so it's showing that right now. We're going to install a different route here in a moment, but this will show you your route, which is very cool. All right, so the things are booted up. The next things I like to do on the 727 is turn on my lights that I need. So I like to do the left side and left, center, and forward background panels, as well as the overhead panel lighting and the right side panel. Just hit those guys. You can also turn on a flood for the main panel there. Doesn't really do that much in the daytime. It's very helpful at night, though. We also want to make sure the navigation lights are on. They are. And then on the FE panel, the lighting for him is these four right here, which I usually will put up to the 12 o'clock position. In the daytime, the one thing I will not worry about is the table. This is a red light that will illuminate the table for reading all those charts. And you really don't need it during the day, and especially not the fact that it's red. The red is to help your eyes in the dark. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that one off. By the way, I've alerted the devs to this. All of the charts still say JT8D-9s, so these charts are all pointless for the Super, and they said this will be fixed for the release of the Super. This will have the updated charts that you need there. So that was something I caught earlier and let them know. Here's the digital fuel gauge displays, which are very cool, and you can see tank 1 is lower than the other ones because that's where the APU is sucking out of. So that is FYI there, and it's a gravity feed, so you don't need to worry about turning any pumps on. I was able to confirm, I think in my previous tutorial video I talked about turning pumps on, so that way the APU has something. You don't need them. The APU is literally sitting below the center tank pump. The center tank, it just feeds into it. And the APU obviously has its own built-in pump, so just like the engines do. All right. So the next course of action I will normally take, obviously if we were doing this flight for realsies, I'd start the loading process. We're not going to do that. I'm just going to quick load everything to get going today. But so the next thing I would do is set up the FE panel. And to do that, we're just going to go through and do it in a very methodical, top to bottom, up and around. It's like a giant U with a dip. That's what I call this. The U with the dip is the flow I take. So starting up here, we already checked our battery stuff. Again, you can go into as much detail as you want here because there's no failures. So you have the battery indication, you have the essential transformer rectifier 1 and rectifier 2. Obviously leave the battery switch on. Down here is the AC generator drive switches. These should all be guarded. The lights for low pressure are on because the engines are not running. There's no oil pressure. And then you can put the in and rise temperature indicators into whichever position you want. Sometimes it's nice just to exercise the switches, but that's up to you. We don't need to get into what those are really doing today. I'll leave those for a more advanced tutorial video. The gen bus ties, this is a little bit of a goof because all of these bus ties should be closed right now because the APU is supplying power to all those buses, and these will not allow you to come online, and they won't even show closed until the engines start. I have let the devs know about this. This is a problem that exists in the base 200 as well, so hopefully we get that fixed at some point. But where it says bus here is essentially where it's connecting, and so obviously there's a break. And the APU would be connecting to the synchronizing bus, which is what these are here. So, anywho, all these essentially, though, the rest of these, the gens and the fields, should all be in alerting you that they're wrong because the engines are not running. And so we'll deal with those in a little bit. However, over on the side here, again, make sure your essential power is over in APU. And while we were up here, I should have done this. You can turn the galley power on. We don't have passengers here, so this would be like turning on maybe like a coffee maker that might be right behind the cockpit or something for those of you that are addicted to the black sludge. So have at that. Don't need to worry about that until we start engines. Down here on the fuel panel, something that I like to do is just to make sure all of our fuel pumps are working, is I will go through and just turn everything on, make sure the lights go out for everything, and then click them back off. Again, you don't want to put them on needlessly because it's going to put unnecessary strain on the APU generator, so we're going to leave them off. The other thing we'll do is I like to exercise the crossfeed switches and the fuel cutoff switches. Now, interestingly enough, no, maybe not. These look like they're wired shut. Also, is that me or is that? Oh yeah, it is. Look at that. That's shut up. The text is floating. Floating text. Is that only on that one? Yeah. Open and shut off. That's goofy. Huh. All right. Yeah, I saw this little wire here, so you don't want to break the wire, but I suppose the wire would actually be on the other side. It's a weird place to have that, so maybe that's just to keep the cover from falling off. I don't know. But to exercise this, what I would do is I would hit the crossfeed, and this will see these valve in transit lights light up and then go out, meaning the valve agrees with the position we put the switch in, and then we just switch them back and make sure they go back. And then at the same time, we can also do a fuel quantity test. It will run through its little test here and then go back. And we just do that for all of these. Always make sure they go back to open. So when we go to start the engines, there's something to start. Oops. Like I almost didn't do. All right, there we go. Hydraulic interconnect, brake interconnect. You can go ahead and click that just to make sure that's working. This is a brake interconnect if you need brake pressure from the A system if the B system's not working. The electric pumps that run the B system are what run the brake pressure, and the A pumps don't run the brakes, but if you need to push them in the other direction for the brakes specifically, that's what that's for. As we move down the panel, especially if we're flying on VATSIM, we would turn on our radio panels. Now these are all tied together, so by doing that you see it turned on the captain's and the FO's radio panels. Something else that's important to note here is whatever order in which you turn these on is the primary, your transmit/receive. So if I did this, I am now going to be transmit receiving on VHF 2 and only receiving on VHF 1. To fix that, you just click them both off and then turn on the one you want. This is the knob that should control that, but it does not. And it's something we've brought to the devs before, and it still hasn't been done. So I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but this should denote which one you're transmitting on, and then everything that's lit up is receive. This controls your mic, but you know, hey, whatever. It's not the end of the world. Down here, we would just click on the lights here to make sure all the lights are working. You don't need to exercise the valves. Obviously, the valve lights are working on this one. The pumps are on, or the system is on, but they're not running because they're mechanically driven off the engines, the two pod engines. So, actually, as I say that, I may not be true. One of them may be the number 2. I have to go back and look at the schematic. It's been a while. But anyway, these run off the engines. There's engine 1 pump, engine 2 pump, so they will be off. Click the overheat, make sure that works. Leave the interconnect closed, and same thing with the overheat here. And these are working, but let's go ahead and turn on one B pump. That'll put pressure in the system for the brakes, and that's good. Hydraulic quantities, you can check those there. We can also check these lights, and just click these things to test those various lights there. We want to check the annunciator panel, just make sure everything lights up. Over here, we check the vibration gauges, and these things should all go to about 4.5-ish, somewhere in there, 4.5. And then stop, and then we just let that go. Yep, there we go, about 4.5. And then same thing with the oil quantity test. There's the oil quantity for each engine, and again, that'll just drive these guys to 0. And it basically is forcing the gauge to kind of like reread, make sure something's not stuck. So there we go. All right, we already did our lights. If you want the flood panel light, you can turn that on against the daytime. We don't really need that. Pressurization panel, this confuses some people. First thing, this isn't necessary because this is in manual, so we're not running the system in manual, but I like to keep the switch in the middle, not open, not closed, but in the middle where it's not doing anything. It defaults to being stuck and closed, but again, that's only if we put the system in manual, so it doesn't matter. What this is doing is we're going to tell it the cruising altitude we're going to be flying at, which I believe today is 320, and then the landing altitude, which for Oakland, where we're going, is 9 feet. So we would run this middle one down, and we would set that to the nearest level that's above it. So if it was a 1 foot, we would still put 10. If it's 9 feet, we put 10, and so on and so forth. This will tell the automatic pressure controller how to pressurize the cabin and the cockpit as we climb and descend. Over here, this is the standby system. See how this is divided? This is the auto system, this is the standby system, this is the manual system, and this is the general controls. So standby, we would put the standby cruise altitude or cabin altitude based on our cruise. So we look at this chart here. We find 3.2, that's then the thousands of feet, so 32,000 feet equals 4.4, 4,400. So we're going to bring this down to 4 and bring this up to 400. It does not mean that the automatic controller is going to pressurize us to 4,400 on the pressurization controller. It's going to pressurize us to basically the maximum pressure differential to make it as comfortable as possible that it can get. These are kind of like a rule of thumb in case the automatics go out, and then you can use the standby system to hold that. And in worst case scenario, you can switch to manual and control the flow valve open and closed manually, which takes a lot of work. And you'd be happy to have a flight engineer here to do that if that was to happen, and do that. So on this little knob right here is showing that right now we're in automatic mode. If you click this up, it goes into standby mode, and it tells you right there, standby. Auto lights are out, standby. And then you have in manual mode, you have the AC manual mode, the electrical AC system, and the DC driven manual mode. And the reason there's two is because if you lost a bunch of electrical systems, you may not have access to both of those, and so you may need to use one or the other. It's just backups on backups on backups. There is a check here, and that is, you go down there, it's going to drive the valve closed. And so basically you're just checking to see that that's what happens. The valve operates all the way from full open on the ground where it normally should sit to full closed. And once it goes to full closed, we'll just go back to auto. It'll drive the valve back open. And you see auto fail at the moment because we're in kind of a standby system. So go to auto, and the valve will start to open back up. Okay, so that's what that is. These are your pressure control gauges, the climb rate of the cabin, and the cabin altitude versus the differential pressure rather, and then the cabin altitude. So cabin altitude shouldn't ever go above 10,000, otherwise you start getting an alarm. There's that altitude horn cutout. If you start getting that, you can shut that off there, but that's probably why it's going off, because you didn't set something right. And that switch right here, now this I think is actually, I need to check this at some point. I think this is another thing that's not operating correctly. Before you take off, once you close up all the doors and your engines are started and your packs are running, you should switch this over to flight. This is going to start to close the valves, and it's actually going to pressurize the aircraft to a certain extent prior to takeoff. And then once it gets into the air, once the weight on wheels go off, the controller goes into this flight mode automatically, even if the switch isn't there. But I think in the aircraft right now, if you don't have it in flight, it's just not going to turn on the pressurization system, which is not accurate to how the aircraft should operate. So always make sure this goes into flight before you take off. And once you land, push this back over to ground so the aircraft fully depressurizes before you get ready to open the doors. Again, no actual failures built in the aircraft, so it's not the end of the world. You're not going to die. Cabin, main cargo and cabin control for the what do you call it? For the air conditioning. Left pack, right pack. Auto, it's actually auto is this whole range from this big line to this big line. So you're telling it automatically control the temperature fairly cold or fairly warm, whatever you want to do. If you want to put it into manual, let's see, how do we do this? Right click on the manual, and then you can hold these things over into cool or warm, and you notice it's driving the mix valves over here, and sometimes you have to hold them for a little bit. So I'm just holding it right there, and it's driving that over. And then if you right-click again up here, it'll put it back into automatic. So that's what those are. And a reset button right there. Duct overheat lights, you can check those lights. Tick the trip-off lights. All right. Bleed control. This is another one that trips people up because of how things are labeled. So first things first. Bleed air off engine number 1, pod engine 1. Bleed air off of pod engine 3. Bleed air off of engine number 2. Not engine number 2, engine number 2. Bleed air off of APU. Not bleed air off of APU. So it gives the impression that this is engine 2 and this is APU. No. Both are engine 2, both are APU. It's the way the valves are isolating for the system. Think of it as the engine 2 and APU bleed valve coming up right where this light is and can go both ways. And so you're just allowing it to go both directions to both packs. That's how you should think of that, those switches right there. So everything should be open right now. We show that we have APU pneumatic pressure because we got the APU running and it's coming from there. However, the minute we turn on a pack valve, there are check valves right here. Well, actually, this diagram doesn't do it justice. There are ISO valves, I guess is probably a better way to put it, that are essentially like right here and right here that will close if there is no bleed pressure detected from the engines. And when those close, the pressure sensing devices are on the other side of those ISO valves. So when you turn on a pack, these needles drop to 0. Not because you don't have manifold pressure going to the packs, but because it's closed off the valve to where those pressure sensors are. The advantage of that is if you're running the packs and trying to start engines, you'll look up here and go, oh, I don't have any bleed pressure to start my engines. Yeah, you don't, because you're wasting it all through the APU. The downside is the minute you do that, you also think, wait, do I have bleed pressure to the APU? But the fact the APU is running and the pack temperatures are showing what they're showing is what gives that away. So now there is a goof here, and I'm going to show you right now. When I hit either one of these pack switches, both those ISO valves close. However, notice only one side drops to 0. They both should drop to 0. It's not only closing the ISO here, it'll close the ISO here as well. So that's something I've let them know about. Hopefully they'll fix that at some point. Again, not a big deal, but it's just little things that drive me nuts. But they're all fixable eventually. So you also want to make sure the cooling doors are are full open on the ground to make sure there's adequate pack cooling. There are automatic cooling doors. In fact, I'll show you. We're going to go into this in detail. We might as well. These are the cooling doors. They're ram air doors, full open. But there's also these guys right here. This cooling fan right there that's running at full tilt. As long as you're on the ground, and I think it's once the gear drops, these doors automatically open, and there is a check valve in here that keeps air from going out the cooling doors. These are the exhaust louvers for the pack system, and so when the packs are on and we're on the ground, these doors will open, this fan will initiate, and it draws air in to go over the heat exchangers and exhaust out these. It doesn't drive air out the front because of that check valve. In the air, that will close, those fans will go off, and ram air will push its way over the heat exchangers and exhaust out the louvers. So just be aware of that. You don't do anything to control that. That's automatic. That's not the cooling door it's referring to. It's referring to the ram air doors. And you control those switches right there. Gasper fan we can turn on. That is the little, it's these guys. Where did I see these at? These little guys that shoot air out, like you have over your passenger seats in your cabin. That's the gaspers. And there's a fan. They will naturally be pushing air out through the system, but the fan will give it an extra boost and really push air through the system. So cargo heat outflow, you can just put that on normal. Oxygen for the crew and oxygen for the passengers, but there are no passengers, so it doesn't matter for that one. But on the 7.2, they're not oxygen generators. They're actual bottles that have enough oxygen for for the passenger cabin for about 10 to 15 minutes of oxygen while you get down to an acceptable level, as opposed to individual generators like most modern airliners have. So we have gauges for that, and then the crew has their own bottles for doing their thing. Passenger oxygen system should just be normal, and that means it's usually armed. If you turn it on, that would drop the rubber jungle, so you don't want to do that. Of course, no rubber jungle back there because there's no passenger cabin, so there you go. Pack trip cutout and normal. For takeoff, what this does is if the event the airplane senses an engine failure after you hit a certain engine speed and your flaps are extended, this will show green for being armed. It will automatically trip the packs off to give you just as much engine boost as you can, because you might have to be taking the aircraft into the air on less than the total number of engines, and so it's a safety system. Another goof here is when the flaps come up, this should disarm automatically. It does not. It stays on until you switch it back to cutoff, so that's a goof. And I think it doesn't even arm until the wheels come off the ground, possibly. Actually, no, it may arm appropriately when the engine RPM goes up high enough. I don't remember if I checked. But it should disarm when the flaps come up. So, aft zone cabin temp. This is a very confusing system, and it really doesn't have any effect on the fact that we have cargo, so I'm not even going to talk about it. We'll save that for the other advanced series. Start valve lights, kind of self-explanatory, and then wing anti-ice. Again, we would just do a test here, reset it, do a test here, and then test the main cargo smoke. And, oh, those should light. Interesting. Found another bug. Those should all light up. They do on the regular 200, so that must be something that got goofed in the code. I'll let them know about that. Then after we do, and that's the FE panel. We don't have to mess with that again until takeoff. Back here, I like to come back here and just make sure all of my fuel dump lights are working. Obviously, make sure all of your fuel dump switches are off and closed. The fire protection here, you would check and make sure they're in the AB mode. And then over here, we flip the fire test light on. We verify that we got 3 lights there and the bell, and we have the lights there. And then we can reset the bell right there, and preferably turn it off so it's not staying lit. Make sure the autopilot test switch is closed. We already tested what we need to do with the APU, so we'll check the leading edge flaps and check this back annunciator panel. And this is always a good time to double check and make sure you turn the radio masters on at the end of that FE panel setup. Then we come over to the overhead, same thing. It's not a U though. This time we're going to go down one half the panel, down the other half the panel, and then kind of cross over the side. So we start up here and look and see that we have all of the switches closed and guarded. On the anti-skid side, we're going to close that guard and do a test inboard, outboard, and let it go. If you're going to get pushed back, it's always a good idea to turn that back off and then turn it on once you're going to taxi normal. Stall warning, do a little test of that guy, let it go, and hold this flight recorder for test. A little beep, and that light comes on. Make sure your compasses are slaved. You can test your instrument comparator if you hold that. You may have to find a fun view for this one because there's not really a good way to hold it and see it. There we go. So this is the comparator right here. That's what we're looking for. And if we hold that, those all light up, except that first one. That's okay. So just make sure that those light up. I don't know that this actually is functioning because the one time that I know this should activate is if your your altimeters are too far different from each other, and I've had them quite different. I've never seen the comparator light go. So I don't know if that's actually functioning or not, but at least it tests. VHF nav, vertical gyro, and compass should all be in normal. We can check the cargo detectors right there. Fire detectors, auto brakes. You can do whatever you want with those. Right now, I would leave them in disarm. And then the only thing in the center, make sure windshield wipers are off and arm your emergency exit lights. Start valves should all be closed. Alternate flaps should be off. Again, compass slaved. You can test the microphone of the voice recorder right there. Needle moves over there. No smoking light can go on. We'll put the seatbelt signs on for now, for whatever reason. Window heat, we turn all these on to test. If it's warm outside, these lights may not kick on right away. So we can do the power on test. Just hold that down. You see green lights. And the overheat test. And then let that go. And then we turn them all off to reset the switches. Notice that they say off reset. And again, because we're on APU, we'll leave them off generally, unless it was cold outside. Then we could probably turn them on and make sure the windows are warming up. But in the summer, early fall, we just turn them off until engines start. Anti-ice, again, check the light, and you can just run this through. You're not going to really see anything change on the duct temperature there. This, I'm curious to see if this is fixed yet. On the regular 200, the wing anti-ice valve lights are borked, but the engine ones work. And to test these, we go into left side, and again, we're moving the switches, and it's a valve agree light. So once the valves go off, it means they don't agree with the position the switch is in. When they come back on, they agree. So now they're open, and we show open indication. We'll go over here to wing, and we'll do ground test. And if it's like it before, then these are just going to stay off. They'll never agree. And even if we close them, they'll never agree again. So they're just dead now. So that's what I mean. They do work, but yeah, they're just gonzo. So anyway, I don't know if that means the system's not actually working or it's just a weird bug with the lights, but anyway, it is what it is. And then pitot heats, just turn one on, then the other to test. Again, you don't want to run them until we're ready to go, and it's a big draw on the APU for amperage. So, and then just double check all your lights. If you hadn't set up your lights until now, you can do that now. Again, the big one is navigation lights. If it was dark, logo light maybe, or wing lights. And if we're about to start, we'll put the beacon on, but we don't need those yet. We're not ready for that yet. Let's see here. As we come down, we can double check our radio panel again. Make sure, if you're on VATSIM especially, you've got the Mach airspeed test, and we got 2 of them. And then you have the warning mode, which just sounds like a downer airspeed test. Just changes the pitch down a little bit. We can cage the standby artificial horizon by here just by holding this knob down, or you'd be pulling it out in the real world. It's actually a push in this case, so, but yeah, normally that's a pull out. I guess maybe that's that design. I don't know. Set your altimeters. Right now we already know it's 293, so that's already set and done. Coming over here, we can also test our lights in the cockpit in general, so move that up. It's also going to test the whaler for the autopilot. That's a wah, 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 wah. And you can kind of get a good, nice glance at everything and kind of verify everything's working. This is the lighting up the Christmas trees, they say. Down, test them, or test the number of them in a dim position, and doesn't give you the whaler. So, do that. GPWS, system test. Hold for a moment, let go. It should, after a moment, I think. I'm trying to remember this one versus the 737. See, it's asked us for this again. We're going to hit OK. And maybe I have to hold it longer. There we go. Is that all it says, or do I have to hold the whole time? Okay, there we go. And that just does it. So it's just glide slope, whoop whoop, pull up. That's all you're hearing. It's not going to do a billion. It's very, very dumbed down GPWS, so it's not much to it. Transponder right here, we can test. You do need to be in a particular mode, so you have mode 1, mode 2, and standby. That's transponder off. Altitude reporting off or on, and then your system. So transponder only, TA only, which is traffic advisory. And then you have 3 modes for TARA, or TARA, as some people like to call it. And you have below, above, and normal. And I would just put it in normal. And then you have a range. I don't know if this even does anything, or what A. I think A is automatic, and I don't know if the 12 means 12 mile. Probably 12 mile. But yeah, so I would just leave it in A for automatic. You have an ident light there and a test light there. So if we go to number 1, first of all, we see some blue indications come on the vertical speed indicator / TCAS display. And we can hold test now. And we get the test pattern. And I think after a moment it'll say TCAS test pass or something like that. TCAS test pass. Yeah, there you go. So that works. Then these are controls for your HSI, and we'll talk about those in flight more. You have throttles, 3 of them. Push them up to get the takeoff warning horn. Now, interesting to note, if you're using something like SPAD or X's and O's, I don't know if X's and O's is going to do this as well, but I know SPAD did it to me. These bind differently than they did in the standard 200, and I'm wondering if the standard 200, when they update now, is going to break and go to this mode. I don't know. I'm assuming this is the case because there's no reverser axis in number 2 now, because on the Super, we don't have reversers on the middle engine, which is normal. But because of that, when I mapped them to be equal, I would push the throttles up, and I'm doing my best to kind of keep them equal now on myself. But what would happen is it would look like this, because the range was much shorter for the center engine, and so even if my throttles were equal in my hand, they looked like that. So I had to do some weird voodoo in SPAD. When you map them in Microsoft, they're fine. So I don't know what the difference is and what's seeing something funny, but if you're using something like SPAD or something like that, I have a snippet on SPAD that has that correction built into it. So if you are using SPAD, go find my snippet under Mustafa for the 727 Super. It's labeled Super, and grab those. That'll help you solve that stupid issue. Doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever. Trim, obviously. This is the other thing we have new is with the spoiler axis, we actually have the ability to arm the spoiler now. We have auto spoilers. So you see, you can move it into an armed status, and then obviously you can move it into its range of motion as well. But to arm those, just click it up. If you don't have it mapped, you can just click it right there, and then click and hold on the, not on the handle. This will trigger the arming mechanism. Once it's up, though, then click on the bottom part where there is no hand grabbing, and just grab and slide, and it will do its thing. And if you put it back, there it goes. So I just do everything all the hardware. So, and then the flaps are the same as they've always been. Engine start lever controls, brake controls, and then radios. There was a bug on the other 727, one of them, the passenger or the freighter, or both, I don't remember. Where occasionally these would all blank out. I don't believe that's happening on the Super, but if it does, just mess with this knob here and they should come back. It's a bug they're aware of, and I believe they're fixing it for the next update. So, this is the gear warning horn pullout. When it comes time to descend the 727, it's always a good idea just to yank that, because you may end up going to idle, and then if the gear's not down, this will scream at you and you'll hit yourself. So. One other thing the 727 Super does that the other one did not is it has an automatic high idle setting for approach. So when the nose gear is down and locked and the flaps, no, does that have anything to do with the flaps? No, I think it does. I think if the flaps are down and the nose gear is down and locked, then the system, you don't have to do anything, and there's no indication that it's working unless it breaks, and then there's an indication that it doesn't work. And that's this light here. But if what happens is it automatically sets 10% higher N2, I think it is, for high idle. Then for the 10% higher N2 on idle. So if you pull the throttles all the way back, if they would normally go to, say, like 45, oh, it's not going to do that. It goes normally to like 55% N2, let's say. They'd probably be going 10% higher. I don't know if it's 10% higher than the 55, which if that's the case, it'd be like an extra 5 or so degrees or something like that. So you'd be like a 60% N2. So it just gives you a little bit extra boost and a quicker response in the engines. 5 seconds after the left main touches down and the weight on wheels in the left main activates, it automatically disables the high idle and reverts back to normal or low idle. So again, you don't need to do anything. There's nothing that you're going to make sure that it activates or have to override it. It just does it under the hood automatically. It's a super thing. It's a super thing. Okay, so that's all done. Let's go ahead and load this up. And I think I have to reset. Oh no, Oakland. Perfect, it's got it. So we go in. If you... Wait, how does it have it? I don't know. Because I didn't load it in here, did I? I don't think so. I'm going to reset it just in case, because I was playing with this earlier, but I'm not sure how it got it into its self over here without me doing that. So in other words, if you don't ever see your flight plan here, go and put it into the tablet, the EFB there, like I just did, and then just go over here and cycle this thing, which is what I'm going to do right now. So hold long press until it turns off, and then turn it back on, and you should see it there. Now I saw it there. It was odd to me that it was there, because I don't know why it was there. And it may be because it just linked to SimBrief, and so it sees it since I filed it already. I don't know. I thought you had to put it into the EFB. Maybe you don't. Maybe it's smart enough to just do it. Which, if that's the case, hooray. Alright, and there it is, Ontario. We're going to hit OK, and we're going to select that and hit Enter. And it's going to put in our route minus all the SIDs and stars and stuff. So it's very basic for this route. But we say select, just to confirm it, and boom, there it is. And so now you can see it's drawn the initial course line, which again doesn't reflect any kind of SID or star. So we're going to go in here, and we're going to go to Depart. And if you can usually select more than one thing with these guys. So if it's on the wrong one, just click the next one. These things, these little caret symbols are saying, hey, it goes to this one and the one above it. There's nothing above it in this case, so it's only going to go to Depart. So we're going to say Depart, and it knows we're ONT. If this wasn't here, you can go up here and put it in and manually enter ONT. But in this case, it's got it. I think the weather, I have no idea what the weather is actually. I'm assuming they're taking off on the two 6s, but I'll double check before I do all the work and then regret it, because that will be lame. The weather in Ontario, yes, variable at 4, and they're defaulting to 2 6s. So 2 6 left. Let's hit enter. We're doing the Sunshine 5 departure, and that is, I believe, no, it's not Shafter anymore, because that was for the other flight. Although it might still be Shafter. Nope, Carez transition right there. All right, so it gives you the waypoints of the SID. And we say select and enter. Now, it's always a good idea to go through and make sure it included everything. You can always add stuff if it didn't get it. So I'm going to go double check on the chart right now. The Sunshine departure. Our first waypoint after the altitude, which is 1460, which it has right there, is Dink, which makes me think of Spaceballs. And then POM, which is the Pomona VOR. Sunshine, which is right after Pomona. Inland, which is a 14,000 foot restriction, and then we should have Shores, Midway, and then Carez. So if we go to next page here, there's Shores, Midway, Carez, and then Argood is the, you can see it's indented because that's part of the SID. Argood is our next waypoint, and that is the normal route, although it's also coincidentally going to be the start of the arrival, the ESMA 4, the ESMA 4, how do you say that? EMOAS. Yeah, Emoza. I can't say anything right. My gosh. All right, so we'll do arrive. And again, Oakland, it already knows because it's got our route. You would have to do that if you hadn't already told it where it was going by giving the route initially. You notice it doesn't give us a runway here, so go ahead and leave it there. It's wanting the transition to the arrival. And so in this case, that's at Argood. So hit that. And that eliminates a lot of potential stars. It's basically just the Emoza 4, because that's the only one with that transition point on it. So that's good. Now you notice we don't have anywhere else to go here. Like, it didn't give us an option. So we really have to tell it a runway, which is why I think the system is kind of screwy. So we're going to tell it runway 30. That's pretty typical for Oakland. And then we'll say select, enter. And again, we want to check our route. So now Argood has been pushed in because it was part of the star. So they're all indented now. So Argood, and I'm going to look at the chart here for the Emoza. And from there, we go Argood, we go to Emoza, and then My Jaw. And then we have Schism, that's correct. We have My Rib, that's correct. Should be My Knee. Oh, wait, hang on. Wait, did I? schism, my rib, my hip, my knee. Schism, my rib. Oh, there's my hip. My rib and my knee have big old altitude and speed constraints, and my hip has nothing, so it just blended into the terrain. Okay, my rib, my hip, my knee. My rib, my hip, my knee. I'm good. Then my shin. Who made this approach? And then my shin is the end of the star at 6,200, and so you notice there's nothing else after that. It's just blank, blank, blank. So now we'll go to approach, and runway. We're going to say runway 30. And at this point, we could do an ILS, an RNAV, or an ILS or an RNAV Yankee or Zulu. Let's take a look at either one of those, because they might connect nicer than the other stuff otherwise would. The ILS typically isn't going to connect directly, although it might. In this case, actually, the ILS does connect directly from my shin, which was the end of it, right? Yeah, so the ILS works too. Let me just check the RNAV. Yankee, also from my shin. Yes, they all connect directly. So just for the ease of use, we're just going to do the ILS then. So enter that. And the transition is my shin. And there we go. And we can select that and enter. And now we can scroll down here and go my shin, and it goes to my calf, and then it goes to Fernie, or Franny, however you want to say that. And then move on, and my toe. And my toe is the final approach fix. And then the missed approach point at runway 30, and then the missed any stuff for the missed approach and holding point and all that fun stuff. So we've got that in there. That's all good to go. We can go over to VNav and verify. Let's see here. Next page. We can verify all of the VNav data in here if we want to. And just make sure it's got all that correct. It looks like it does. This thing does have some VNav stuff in it now, which is nice, but we didn't have that before. So we're going to try that out today. Haven't messed with that yet. See how that works. So VNav is there. I also want to make sure. I can't remember where it is. And no, it's not there. Where's one of these pages? I thought told me what my cruise altitude was, because you need that for the VNav, I thought. But I'm not seeing that here. Next. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter, per se. Data. Oh, there it is. It's under data. Hello. Haha. See, that's new. Under data, cruise altitude. So if you need to change that, it brought this in because I gave it the information from Simbri, so I assumed it would have this. Transition level, we're in the state, so 18,000 or 50180. And then default, the descent path is a 3.0 descent path. So good, that's taken care of. That's all good. We can go back to flight plan and just leave that right there. And we can see the plan over here on our doodad. And again, we could massively declutter this if we wanted to. So if we go to menu here, next page, I could turn off the intersections and maybe the airports. There we go. And now it is much easier to look at and understand where we are and kind of see and track our route. So it's kind of nice having a backup. All right, flight plan is entered. Let's get ready to rock. Now, some quick little things on the EFIS here to control this. And I've asked the devs about this. I haven't heard back yet. You have course 1 and course 2, and then heading. Heading controls the heading on both FOs and captain's EFIS. Course 1 really is the captain's EFIS course control, and will control whatever the captain's EFIS is set to within reason. So, in other words, let's do... so we're on FMS. That's not helpful. Let me go down here. We'll change this to nav1. So right here it says it's lit up green, nav1. That means we're now controlling the course of nav1. You can see that moving right there. And let's see. Do we see... If I put nav1 over here, course, let's see, nav1, now it's going to move because that's the one that's associated with the commanded one on the captain's. It's not moving nav1 because it's course 1. If I put this into course 2, into nav 2, and I use course 1, it's now moving the nav 2 needle. And likewise, over here, if I change, let's see, let me go, oh, how did I get rid of this? This was annoying. There we go. This one's on nav 1. If I move course 1, notice course 1's no longer moving. But I can move nav 1 with course 2 because that's the primary on the FOs. So really what you're looking at here is this knob is whatever is set to the captain's primary. And it will move on either one of them, assuming that that's the one that's on the captain's primary. Course 2, the same way, will move either one of them, assuming it's the primary on the FOs. It's not moving nav 2 and nav 1. It can, but not necessarily. And so I feel like these are labeled incorrectly. Course 1 and course 2, I feel like these should be labeled, you know, captain versus FO course knob. And then the courses are obviously tied together with however you want to do it. But alas, that is not how it's labeled currently. And so it feels like that's not intuitive. The heading moves both, you know, simultaneously. So that's easy to remember. The way this works, though, is you have a couple different HSI modes. You have an ARC mode. You have ARC with flight plan on it. And then you have the full compass rose. And those just cycle between those three. If you don't have a flight plan in there, it'll feel like you're hitting this button and nothing's happening because it'll go to this mode, but nothing changes. The fact that I have a flight plan in here, it took me a while to go, oh, that's what it's been doing. I thought it was like, why am I hitting it twice and it's not doing anything? Course will cycle through the different ones here. So the green is primary. So you see right here it says nav 2. As I click that, that changes to FMS. And then ADF1, ADF2, nav1, nav2, and FMS, and just cycles through all those guys. And then this down here, second course, is where you can put a second one. The one up here that's kind of gray says FMS. If I push that, that goes to ADF1, ADF2, nav1, nav2, and so forth. In this mode, though, in the rose mode, that second course doesn't, or not the rose mode, but the arc mode, that second course doesn't do anything. It's grayed out. But if we go into this mode, actually it still says gray, but now it will actually display information. So there you go. But if we go back to this mode, you notice it's gone. It's just the one there. So if you want to declutter, you can do that. If you want to see it, if you want to get rid of it, the best way is just to set second course to be the same thing as the primary course, because it won't show both twice. So we're on nav 2, so in order to get rid of it, you make sure second course is on the same one, so they match. It'll show the course amount down here. It shows the heading number down here. It gives you distance up here and estimated time once we're actually flying. We have distance information here. We also have DME distance on number 1 here and number 2. This will obviously show whatever you're selected on. So this is showing distance to nav 2 right now. If we put this onto FMS, it'll show us 2.2 miles to Dink, and it's going to show us that. And I'm going to put this onto FMS so I just see the one thing because that's obnoxious. And we can put that onto course mode with the flight plan on it, and that's nice. And in this mode, it doesn't work on the rose mode, but in the arc mode, you have this bearing here. So if you push this this knob, which is hard to see what's happening right now, if I push this, I'm doing decision height. If I pull it, now I'm changing the range of the scale. So there's 300, 200, 100, 50, 25, 10, 5. 5 is as low as it goes. I think it's 600 as high as it goes. So that's kind of cool. So for takeoff, initially, we'll probably put it at like 10, because that'll give us a nice look. Actually, I might even put it on 5. So yeah. So that's how that works. It's kind of cool. Altitude mode works just like it did before. We're going to put that, just going to bug it all the way up to 32, since that's where we're going. And then up here on the autopilot, the way this works, heading, self-explanatory, arms heading mode, and we'll arm the flight directors for heading. Nav will arm the nav, whether or not you're using FMS or GPS, depends on what that switch position down there. Half bank will command the autopilot to not turn 28 degrees, but rather about 12.5 degrees, I think it is, when it pitches, when it banks left or right. Approach mode for capturing the ILS. VNAV, which we'll see if it works today, but that should follow the VNAV path stuff. Again, we don't have an auto throttle, so we still have to manage that, but it should command within the parameters. We have a climb and descent mode, which is kind of cool. The descent kind of seems like a standard thing, and I'm not sure how that works yet. I haven't played with it. Climb is kind of cool though. So if we hit climb, it's going to command the pitch bars for a climb thing. It says roll climb here, and you see it says 230 right here. So it's going to command a climb at 230 knots. So think of it as a preset IAS mode. And then this performance select, if I click that, it'll change it to 250 or 270. So I have 3 different climb modes: a low speed climb, a climb, and a high speed climb. And so you can just set those, or you can use speed mode, which is the IAS hold. It's not going to set or command a speed bug command, but it'll hold whatever speed you're at when you engage, just like before. So think of that. That's IAS hold, speed mode, same deal. And if you click the climb button again, it turns it off. Same thing with all of these modes. If you just click them again, it'll kill it. Altitude, same thing. It's a capture. It's an arm. So Alt select. You always have to arm this anytime you change the altitude, or it will not capture. So make sure you always arm that if you want it to actually capture the altitude you've set. All right, and that is all good there. And then you also have a little display. These have little light-up lights on them, but they're very hard to see in the daytime. So the FMA right here is your friend. Be aware of that. All right, let's go ahead and close the doors and start up right. Oh, I need to get the load here first real quick. So let's do that. So let's go. We're going to hit play and then just snap to the load by hitting the double lines there, and then boom. And so now we're fully loaded, we're fully fueled. And you'll see if we go on the back here, there is no cargo, so that's still just like that. It is what it is. All right, let's go ahead and close the cargo door. We will close the main door. Maybe. Maybe not. Oh, there it goes. Cool. All right, doors closed. Close the flight deck door. Beacon goes on, and we are going to turn off the packs because we need engine start power. We're going to turn on 1 fuel pump per tank just to get the engine started, and then we'll turn them all on. Again, it's all about saving load on the APU there. So that's all good to go, and now we can go ahead and start the engines, and I'm going to open the windows for this because the sounds on this thing are tremendous. All right, here we go. So engine start. I'm going to turn on the continuous ignition. Oops. And we're going to go engine start number 3. And we're looking for about 20% on N2. I have hardware switches to activate the fuel, so you're not going to see me look down and do it, but that's where you would do it if you don't have cool hardware like me. And 20%. Love that low as it kicks in. All right, we have a good start. Starting number 1. Same thing, watching for 20% and 2. %. Good start. Number 2. Different companies had different start sequences. Some did 1, 2, 3. Some did 3, 2, 1. I do 3, 1, 2. I start my pods and then I start the center. It's just how I like to do it. And I'm pretty sure I got that from one of the various operator standard procedures. Again, they were company specific. Different companies do it different ways. You'll find that in the airlines. One company does something one way, another one does another way. They're both perfectly fine. They're both perfectly safe. They're both approved. It's not like everything has to be one way. But you'll find companies will standardize. So, all right, that's 3 good starts. We're going to leave that on for takeoff, the continuous ignition. I'm going to go ahead and close the windows now because it's loud. All right. And first things first, we're going to get our gens on. So to do that, we're going to come over to our synchronizing switch and go over to Gen 3. Gen 3 is typically the one we use for essential power. And so we're going to start it first and get it switched over. So you notice we're doing a little bit more than 400 hertz here. So we're going to correct that and bring that down to 400. We have to synchronize these. So this little switch down here, we're going to pull this around until that's right about 400 and then close the breaker. Notice that made the failure switch off because as soon as we put that onto the bus tie, it tripped off the APU. So the minute we put it into any one of these generator switches, it's talking to the synchro bus. So it's going to get powered. Just because we're on Gen 1 doesn't mean we're only talking to Gen 1 now. So you hear the relay kick? That is accurate. That is actually correct behavior. But we want to put, but the failure light didn't go until it hit Gen 3. The relay closes, but the failure light shows until we do Gen 3. All right, so then we got Gen 3 on there. We're now going to go over to Gen 2, and now we get these fun synchro lights. And blinky light is bad. We want lights out. And it actually would be a lot finer control than this, but they did an okay job. But again, we're going to look for 400 hertz in the center one, and that should stabilize those. And the lights go out, we can close the field, and now it's synchronized as well. Finally over to Gen 1, and synchronize. And what's happening is this is looking at the synchro bus with the generators, and so that's why Gen 3 you don't see the lights because the APU is talking to the synchro bus, but you can't sync with the APU, so it's not looking at that. You just have to bring it into its own style anyway and bring it into 400 hertz, so it's pretty close to that. It's not going to synchronize with it. It's literally going to trip the APU off, so it doesn't matter, but you want them to be 400. So after that, we just switch this over to bus tie, so it's showing the bus tie as a whole. All those lights should now be out, and now we can turn on all of our electrical sources because we got tons of power now. If the fuel tanks are relatively even, which they should be once they're burning tank to engine, once they're equal, then we're going to go ahead and turn off the cross feeds for the outer tanks. And so each tank is going to burn to its own engine. You leave the center one open to keep the fuel manifold pressurized in the event you need to open it. So, but you really shouldn't have to do anything now. These will stay. If you had more fuel in the center tank, you would leave all of these open, and these pumps will overpower those guys, and it will drain only from the center. And then once they're even, then you've got to close the bleeds, because otherwise it'll keep draining out of the center and go dry and leave those guys full, and you don't want to do that. You want to burn those all evenly once they can. But the center tank can hold a lot more fuel than the outer tanks, the wing tanks. All right, B pumps fully on, And that's the APU light. That's fine. So we'll switch this over to flight, and we'll put the packs back on. Notice now that the packs come on, there's a drop in pneumatic pressure, but it does not go to 0 because these valves don't close because we actually have bleed air coming from the engines. For flight, though, we do turn off the bleed on engine number 2. So these can go back off now. We don't need the APU bleed. It's going to go off. And we don't want the bleed off of the engine number 2. We're just going to take it off the pod engines. We'll only use that if we need it because we lose an engine in flight or something, and then we can deal with that. It's an option, but we don't use it. Cooling doors are full open still. That's good. We'll come back here and we'll turn off the APU, and that will start to spin down. And everything else looks okay on the FES panel back here. So we're good there. On the overhead here, we can now turn on the window heats, and we can turn on the pitot heats. Seatbelt sign's already on. We can. I'm just gonna turn taxi. I'm not gonna mess with GSX for this. This video is already long enough, so we're just gonna go ahead and close the anti-skid, and everything else should be okay. We'll go ahead and turn the taxi lights on, which I have a switch for on my Bravo, so I'll do that. And then finally, we need to set our performance here. So we go to takeoff here, get the latest weather, make sure it's all up to date, make sure you're on the right runway here. And it's going to give you the takeoff EPR for the center engine, the takeoff EPR for the pod engine. It's also going to give you the N1s for those, but we run it by EPR usually. It'll give you your takeoff trim. Now you can set all these by clicking this, and it'll set them all. I'm going to do that for the bugs, because it's also going to give us our bugs. Our V2 bug, the important one right there, 138. So I'm going to set that. It's going to set our speed bugs. So that's V1, 133, VR, 133 is the same. V2 is 138, which is the red bug right there. And then 5, minimum safety speed, 165. That's where we'll raise our first notch of flaps, next notch of flaps, and final notch of flaps right there at 205. So that's how we'll do that. This is for a flap. This defaults to flaps 15. You can change this to something else, but I usually do flaps 15. I'm not going to set these. I'm going to do it manually. So 218 and 194. Now I have a map switch in my Bravo here to drive all the EPRs together. And this is why you'd want to hit that button if you don't have this, because this could be a pain. So I'm going to set 190, was it 191, 192, something like that? Go back and look at it. 194. I wasn't right on any of those counts. So 194, but the center engine is going to be higher. It's going to be 218. So then I'm going to take the center engine by itself and set 218. And I think, when I did this the other day, I think keeping the handles about centered ends up driving them to their different positions for the most part. Again, because it's a different engine, it has a different reaction to how much throttle you're giving it, so it ends up all working out in the end. The other thing we're going to want to know, and I normally would get this off the panel back here, but these are incorrect numbers, so I have to get it off of the internet right here, which is from FSS. They've got the performance numbers here. So the max climb EPR for us is going to be, let's see, that's for the, how are they displaying this? Oh, 1 and 3, okay. Although I feel that's wrong. 200-17. Maybe that's, I'm not sure if I'm reading this chart right, but I'm just going to look at the 5,000. And what's the temperature out here right now? It's like 25 C. So 25 C for 5,000, because by the time we start climbing up, it doesn't change usually that much. It looks like 1.89 for the pods and 1.93 for number 2. So 8.9 and 9.3 is what we're going to be aiming for once we reduce. So 8.9 and 9.3. So I'm just going to make a little note of that on my paper here, because I'm never going to remember that. And once you have that set, you should double check those numbers with the chart every so many thousand feet. But you'll find that the EPRs will generally move naturally with the change in temperature and pressure to their respective, as long as you set them correctly the first time, with a little minor adjustments. So 8.9 and 9.3, yeah. 8.9 over 9.3. That's what I want right there. Okay, cool. All right, with that, we'll set our flaps to 15 right there, and our trim to 3.75 per the EFB there. 2, 3, 75 right about there. Should be in the green band, and we are. All right, we can close that guy up. And we got beacon, we got taxi. Let's make sure all of our controls are working. Always very important to double check in the sim especially. And our steering is working, excellent. And we are on GPS because we're going to use the FMS right there. So let's go ahead and pull our parking brake. And we're just going to do an about face right here. Which is not realistic, but that's okay. Of course, we are on the other side of the runway, so of the airport from the runway we want to take off, but it is what it is. We're not on VATSIM, so I can kind of do whatever I want. I don't do these kind of videos on VATSIM just because it's simpler not to. When we arm a system, you'll notice, like if I put it in heading mode right here, we get the command bars. It's a dual queue system. Now, what's interesting, I noticed the other night when I took this up for the first time, ended up having a conversation with Martin about this because that didn't make a lot of sense. It's dual queue now. Once I get off the ground and get up to a certain speed, it's going to switch to single queue automatically. And I think due to a misinterpretation of the manuals for these guys from Collins, they interpreted that the flight director style would change automatically based on your mode of flight, your speed range. Which I went pouring through the manual and went, no, that's not right. At least not that I can tell. What they do suggest is that you can get them in either single queue or dual queue, and the way they did their graphics, it made it look like one was for a higher speed range. I think is how it got interpreted. Anyway, all that to say is I brought that to their attention, and so it sounds like what they're going to do, they're going to release this to you guys with only single queue. But eventually, the dual queue will be added as an option in the paper EFB. So if you want to switch and use dual queue, you can. If you want to just stick with the single queue, you can. Because some people really like dual, some people really like single. I personally am more of a fan of the dual queue. It's easier for me to fly to it for some reason. I feel like the single queue, I'm never sure which part of the single queue I'm supposed to be centering or something. I don't know. It just feels odd to me, and it's probably just me being ignorant about stuff. But the dual queue being like hey, here's the target, put that dot on where those two bars meet, that makes a lot more sense to me. And so I like it. So I was kind of disappointed when all of a sudden the dual queue went away. I'm like, wait, where did it go? But hey, whatever. So eventually we'll have I don't know what eventually means, but eventually we'll have the option to do either one. So yeah, but out the gate, my understanding is it's just going to be single. So be aware of that. And I would assume that will be changed for the release. So this whole switching mid-flight should not be happening, I don't think, when it comes to that. We also should, now that we're taxiing, go ahead and switch this over to RTO. Fall off the taxi line here. Now again, you'll notice some of your gauges will look a little off. For instance, the EGT gauge looks different here than it looks like over here. It's actually showing about a similar temperature if you look at how the gauge is laid out, but again, because the center engine is not only a different engine style, but it's also ducted, it's going to have some different properties. So you'll often get different result looking things here than you will in the outer two, especially now that these are more powerful engines on the sides than the center one. So don't think that's a mistake. That's actually correct. That's just the nature of running an airplane with two different engine styles on it. Something also to be aware, I have never experienced this myself, and so I imagine it's going to be different depending on how you set up your hardware, if you have hardware. Some people were noticing that when you put the landing gear to off, when you go to land and drop the gear, I know 77 Spy was having this problem where he's, on his setup, he has to put it back up to up before he can drop it to off with his hardware. I do not have this problem, so I'm assuming that this is just however the hardware is being mapped slightly incorrectly, or maybe a limitation within MSFS default. I'm using SPAD to map my hardware, so I don't seem to have these problems, but if you're using the default MSFS, either there's a different way to do it, or it's a limitation. So if you find once you put your gear up and you put it off and then you're trying to come into land and you can't throw your gear down, either reach over with your mouse and manually do it, or move it back up to up first and then use your hardware to drop it to down, and it should work. But he was flying not the Super, this was in the regular one, into Albuquerque the other day, and he had to go mist because he couldn't figure out how to get his gear down. And then during the mist approach, during the go around, figured out how to do it and came back around and landed successfully. But it's the first time I've seen that happen before. So, but then I was talking to somebody else and they said something similar where they have to use the G key because their hardware wouldn't work or something. And so I don't know what that's all about. But all right, as we're getting ready to go on to the runway here, we would turn our landing lights on and our strobe lights on, and really any other lights just to light everything up. Down in the back here, we're going to move the CSD oil cooler to ground off for the takeoff. That gives us just a little bit more oomph on the engines. If you're going to do a packs off takeoff, you would turn those off now as well, but we're not going to do that, so those can stay on. We also want to make sure the air conditioner cutoff, automatic cutoff, is normal. Again, that light will not light until I think we get to 1.5 EPR at least, or something like that. So, but then it should come off with the flaps come up, and I don't think it will. So we'll check that here in a moment. All right, we're going straight out. We're just going to do a quick little recap here. We're not on the network or anything, so we can just kind of sit here on the runway for a second and just go over our sunshine departure. We're going straight out initially to 1460 and then direct to Dink. Again, that should guide us that way. I'm going to switch this over to nav since we have the GPS. So the flight director should guide us, essentially. It's going to be a little wonky right at the moment, so we're not going to really worry about it yet, but it will eventually guide us. And then we've got the chart overlay there. So it's Dink and then Pomona below 8,000, and then inland above 14, and then that's the end of our restrictions, and we're going all the way up to 32. So I think we're ready to go. We've got our everything set. Oh, the one thing we didn't really ever doing, again, we're not on network, so it doesn't matter, but we would make sure Alt is on. We're on one of the TA modes. We're in TARA, and we'll just use 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, it doesn't matter. So all of that is set, and let's also set our heading mode, our heading to be what our heading is now, just to sync that up. So if we did have to go into heading, it's not like out of sync and out of alignment. And then I'm going to throw that over into my EPR mode. Okay, here we go. So we're going up to 194 on the outer engines and 218 on the inner engine, and we have a nice readout now for this too, so that's kind of cool. So let's go ahead and push the throttles up to get them to stand up, stabilize, and Now we'll push them forward. I'm just going to hold the brakes while I do this to try and set them. So there's 1.9. You can actually see the center one kind of went up higher than it would even to get to. Well, we got 1.94 on the outers. There's 2.19. That's close enough. That one's not really dropped. There it goes. Yep, there we go. It's close enough for government work. So yeah, I've got the center one back just a little bit, but it's close. All right, airspeed's alive. You can see we've got the traditional round dial and also the speed tape there. A little forward pressure on the yoke.
Rotate.
All right, gently pull back.
Positive brake.
Gear up. I'm going to hit the VNAV here and see what that does. I don't know if it's going to do anything quite yet. We are above the 160 mark, so we'll go flaps 5. So we're on FMS and VNAV. See, but we just got in the higher speed range. There our flight director just switched to the single queue. And we're up to the next flap point. Put that notch of flaps up. Steer toward Pomona there. I'm not following the. Oh, there goes my flap handle. Crap. There we go. That was exciting. I'm not really following the command bar for the vertical because I don't know what it's doing. I'm going to go ahead and try this, see what that does. That seems to be a little bit more accurate, although it's trying to hold... What are we trying to hold? 230? Yeah, 230, and it's commanding us down like it's going to... So I'm not really sure. Okay, that makes more sense. Well, however... Well, see, now that we're in the climb thing, but the VNAV didn't catch. Are we... We haven't hit Pomona yet, so we actually shouldn't cross... We need to cross at or below 8,000, so... Curious to see if it's going to do that. Let me turn off that. Let me go back to this VNAV thing. Okay, so now this makes sense to go down here, but... That's going to command like a full-on descent. Yeah, I need to... Yeah, and also with that, we have to watch our engine power here. We have a lot of power in these engines now, and that's taking some getting used to. I'm not used to flying the 727 with so much power. So it is just... normally I'm struggling to gain altitude. It's taking me off like a rocket ship. So this is, again, not the fault of the aircraft. This is just me not used to flying it. So, with this much power. And then I'm still trying to learn the Autopilot system. Again, I haven't done anything with the VNAV side of this yet, so this is all new to me. I'm just going to fly the single queue here and see where it does, see where it goes. See, now it's descending us, but we really shouldn't be. We're past. Oh, now it's suddenly decided. Oh, hey, yeah, let's climb. I'm not sure what's happening there. Let's turn on the autopilot, see what happens. Did that go on? No. I turned it off. There we go. Gotta check my autopilot command bars. Okay, now I need to go back to climb power here. So I say 89 and 93. Alright, there's 88, 89, 92. Yeah, that's in the ballpark. Alright, let's see what this thing does. Back here. Oh, hey, look, this light went off, so maybe they did fix that finally. We can put that back to cutout now because we don't need that again for this flight, so that's okay. That or it never came on, one of the two. Or because we dropped, you know what? I wonder if it's because I ended up pulling my engine power all the way back. That may have triggered it too, because we went back below 1.5 EPR. So it may stay on if I had been able to hold climb power the whole time. We had a weird restriction that we were hitting before we would hit it. So. Okay, so now it's trying to climb. Okay, well, no, it's easing us up to slowly but surely and still climbing us. So now it seems to be doing well. Let me go into the VNAV page here and just see what it thinks it's doing. It says estimated crossing at. I better figure itself out because we're supposed to cross above 14,000. Climb gradient, okay. Just trading climb rate for airspeed since we passed 10. There's a fair middling chance we'll make it. It's gonna be close. It's gonna be close. Oh, it's trying to. Oh, it's just treating it like a level crossing, which is not correct. It's not seeing it as an at or above. It's seeing it as an at. That's why it did that weird level off just now, because it was like, I need to cross it at 14. Okay, that's not cool. And it shows some of these as aboves, so I wonder if that was something we just didn't catch. Yeah. So that might be part of it too. It might have interpreted the data wrong, and we could have gone in and fixed it. Let's try, let me try something, see if I can set one at shores here. So what are we at right now? 16, let's call it, let's say 18 at shores. Oh, I can't. I thought I could change these. Data. No. I guess not. Oh, yes I can. You think I can cross shores at 340? In what world? Oh, it's further away than it looks. Okay. So let's say we want to cross shores at or above 25. Let's go 25. Oops. 25000A. Enter. Alright, so let's see now if it treats that as an above or not. If it levels us off, then that's going to be a problem. We got 37 miles to shores. In the meantime, we're at... Whoops, what the heck just happened there? Oh, that was strange. Is that because I clicked over here? No. Oh, that was weird. Alright, 20,000 feet, total air temperatures around 5 degrees So that is 210 and 216. And I'm showing... Oh, I could be going higher. We're at 198 and 209. So yeah, we could be a little bit more power if we wanted it. Again, those are the max EPers. Give it the guts a little bit. Yeah, I know my landing lights are still on. I don't care. Get all the lights off there. All right, 1,000 to go to 25. So we'll see what it does. Yeah, this thing's got plenty of power now. You don't need max climb EPR. You can just, you know, see how it settles out. But also notice what the fuel situation is here. So the center engine, while it's a higher EPR, is actually using less fuel than the these guys. These are using 8,000 pounds per hour. This one's using just under 5.5. Different engine technologies. This thing keeps like leveling. When I look somewhere else, it's like I look away and it suddenly does this weird like level off and then puts itself right back. So it climbed through it, so I'll give it that. Let's go ahead and arm the altitude there, so stop at 32. So I wonder if the weird level off thing wasn't tied to the 14,000 restriction so much as it just happened to do that little nonsense right there. It's possible. It's also climbing us at a rate that's sacrificing our airspeed that I don't like. So I don't know that I would use the VNAV to climb. I think I would probably use traditional IAS. And that's the case, honestly. See, there it goes again. It just did it again. I don't know if it's doing that because it's not able to hold its speed and that's its like attempt at correcting temporarily and then it just goes back down. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna click that. That's gonna switch us into vertical speed mode, and I'm gonna command the vertical speed down. Maybe. Well, it was working the other night. I don't feel like it's working now. I think I have to mess with that guy. This is how you would deal with the vertical speed. Well, that's not... Oh, is it backwards? No, it's just not recognizing that at all. Oh, because it didn't knock it out of VNAV, that's why. That's why, okay. It should, now, maybe it doesn't, I have to read the manual again. It should knock it out of VNAV, or it should knock it out of its vertical mode when you mess with that wheel. And it should knock it out of its horizontal mode when you rest with the roll wheel. But maybe VNAV's the exception. So I'll have to go back and double check the manual on that one. It is possible. Oh, this thing wants to confirm the Barrow. Well, actually, the Barrow would be 2992 at this point, but whatever. Okay, let's reaching altitude, and then we'll speed up. And then we'll worry about holding speed here in a second. Now with the cooling doors, you would normally be closing these as you get in flight to maintain pack temperatures, but this simulation I don't think is quite right yet, and so They just kind of maintain 70 degrees C, kind of no matter what you do. They'll get higher if you close them, but we don't want them higher. They should at this altitude maintain something around like 45 C, according to an actual 727 FE that I know. Oh, it did not. Oh, you know why? Because I know why. Okay, we're gonna do that. We're gonna do altitude. Let's see if that works. Let's check this descent mode. See what it does. Again, anytime you mess with a different vertical mode or something, always rearm the altitude select. Because it'll stay lit, but it like loses its officialness, which is really unhelpful. The original 7.2 is like that too. If you touch anything vertical, resync the altitude. Yep, see there, it just switched over to green, so it's going to alt capture now. That descent mode is kind of nice. Just click that and it like sets a kind of custom descent level and goes down. I like that. I'm not so much a fan of this. I would much rather just use pitch and then IAS or speed. But this is quite nice. The VNAV I don't understand with the whole like random level off thing. But I need to do some more training with the VNAVs. Again, this isn't a like full-on tutorial by any means. This is I think I understand the autopilot enough to kind of give you some tips and tricks on how to use it. I am no expert yet by any means. This is literally my first like full-on flight with this. I literally just took it up around Fresno and flew it around initially. So. Alright, we're going to wait for it to get up to about Mach 0.8, and then I'm going to show you how to manage your speed just by monitoring your fuel levels, your fuel flow rate. And what's nice is we have this. We have a really fine look at the speed tape versus the dial, which is kind of cool. Alright, there we go. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to pull our throttles back to about 3,000 pounds per hour per engine. So, and actually close to about 3.5. So I'm going to set my center engine there first. Then I'm going to pull the outer ones. And we're going to start there anyway, and then we're going to refine. So they're all doing about 3.5 now. You can see that that results in different EPRs. So we got 2.02, 190, 194-ish. And then we're going to watch our speed. So we're at 300 even right now, 299. And I'm just going to watch and see if that continues to drop a little bit. If it does, we'll just increase our levers just a little bit. But we're going to find that between 3 and on the Super, I think I find that 3.5 is better. On the regular one, it seems to be close to 3. So it is coming back slightly. So I'm going to... I'm only doing 1.9 EPR on the number 1 pod, so I'm just going to increase that just a little bit, try to get that to match the 9.4 on the other one. Right about there. And we'll see how that does. And again, I'm just kind of watching the speed. See it change. Remember, the indicator speed is going to be reflexive of the wind speed in the area. So if your winds are changing, that's going to change no matter what. It's still coming down a little bit, so let's go ahead and increase that center engine just a touch. Obviously, the fuel rate for maintaining cruise will depend on a couple factors. One is how high are you? 2 is how heavy are you? And then what's the temperature outside like too? So we're doing a TAT right now at 32,000 of -5. So if it was colder, we might not need as much fuel burn since it's a bit warmer. The air is thinner. bring the pods up a little bit. Just finding the sweet spot. And again, we're sitting right around Mach 0.8. But I'm not having to make major adjustments here. So just really fine adjustments. You don't need an auto throttle. Just need to keep an eye on it. And then here we can kind of, so you notice here we've, the center tank now is burned less than these guys. So what we could do as a good FE is rebalance this. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to open the cross feeds. And these pumps are going to overpower these guys, and it's going to burn the center engine down onto all three until they're about equal again. Because right now in cruise, the fuel flow is about the same. So we'll maintain pretty similar fuel burn levels now for the rest of the flight. So that's going to take a little while, so we're just going to keep an eye on that. But that can be one of the things you do in cruise as an FE. We're holding 294, so I think we found our sweet spot. We don't really need to touch the throttles anymore. How about them apples? Auto throttles for suckers. Lazy pilots. So we're in nav and we're in alt. Again, I'm going to need to do some research on this VNAV thing. I'm always skeptical of VNAVs that are these rudimentary ones. Even in something like the Mad Dog. The VNAV, the real pilots didn't like to use it below like 10,000 feet. It was a little twitchy. And so they would still use like IAS hold and vertical speed and stuff like that. And then once they got closer to like cruise stuff, they would do more VNAV stuff. But it's just older autopilots. They're not like this is not an Airbus. This is not a modern Boeing. It's going to be more rudimentary, it's going to be twitchy, it's going to do weird things. And so in order to make the ride smooth, sometimes you got to do some funky stuff. Funky stuff. So let's look and see what we got here on these different displays. So we have the speed tape, obviously. This has 2 speed regimes. We're in high speed mode right now. You see our Mach readout right down here, Mach 0.812. Our decision height is over here. I believe right above this we get a radio altimeter readout in addition to the analog one. You have this is a vertical speed path, I believe. Not vertical speed, vertical deviation path. So playing with the V-Pilot, the VNAV more, I'd like to see if this is referencing that or if this is only going to do glide slope stuff. Then we have up here is, in addition to the analog FMA, we have a flight mode enunciators on this EADI. So FMS is the nav mode we're in alt, which is our vertical mode. Down here we got the distance to our next waypoint, where it shows green FMS. That means the needle we're looking at is the FMS needle. The direct track for that is 308. We're obviously not doing 30. Oh, no, we are doing about 308. No, we're not. No, it's 308. We're doing less than that because of wind correction. Because we got a 55 knot crosswind going on here. Estimated time is not showing anything, so I don't know if that should, I would think. But maybe we have to set something up to do that. The current heading bug, which is not centered up where we'd like it, so let's go ahead and move that into position. So it's basically with us there. And then we got our map down there. Let's keep checking on our fuel level here. So we're now down to 4.9. These are 4.5, so we're getting close. You can see these aren't burning anything. It's just this, and their pumps are on, but these pumps are more powerful, so it's just overriding. And then this one has a little bit more fuel than this one, so when we go to click these on, we'll click this one on first. Not that they have to be perfect, but you might as well do it that way. Again, I think it's just the nature of we started this engine first. But 295, we're holding now. Speed beautifully. Haven't touched the throttle since we did the initial. So all that is just fine. Just fine. In fact, I'm curious. Let me look at what my max cruise EPR is. We're at 32, which is right between 31 and 33 that I have numbers for. We're at about -5. And that is 214 and 220, and 214 and 220 for both. So 214, 220, and is our max. And we're doing 198 and 207, so we're below max cruise EPR, so we're okay. All right, about 100 pounds to go. And again, we'll click this guy on first. Just rebalancing the tanks. Sun is making it hard to read. 85, there we go. Switch over. That's opened, and boom. All right, so we're all within about 10 pounds of each other now, which means we are nice and balanced. Let's move the range of this out. So there's 50 miles to that ring, I believe is what we're looking at there. So there's Schism, there's My Jaw, Emzo. So at Emzo we have a 280 at or above, My Jaw is a 220 at or above. Schism is an actual hard altitude, file 100. I think we have a speed restriction there too, though. So Emzo is the 280 knots, and My Jaw 280 knots. Which we're doing 296 at the moment. Where does it tell me? Range, top of descent. Oh, to top of descent. Here we go. So 40 miles from top of descent. And the bottom of this is 6,200, so I'm going to go ahead and set that. And we switch that mode, then we can do 100, so there's 62. So we'll try, when we get right before we get to the top of the descent, we'll try VNav again, we'll see what it does. I feel like VNav will be much better in the descent because it's not trying to climb against engine power it can't control. Traditional VNavs, they're always better, unless they're simply advisory VNavs, if you've got it coupled with an auto throttle, because it can manage the speed and it will take into account the speed. It should do that anyway. It should be shooting for appropriate speed and pitch accordingly. It seemed to be like just pitching for a certain climb rate, regardless of the fact that it couldn't maintain speed, so it was just dropping and dropping. And again, I don't know if that's a limitation of this particular VNav integration or if that's a coding thing that FSS has to do. I don't know enough about the system to comment adequately on it. So I won't. So I won't. 25 miles, top descent. again, my jaw. That's an at or above as well. I'm not going to worry about the altitude, the speed constraint so much up here because we're technically not in. We're not in the transition. We're above it. $15 miles, top descent. I think I will go ahead and just pull speed back. Let it drop a bit. Get into that 280 range. Let's go ahead and pull the warning horn there just so that doesn't go off on us. Alright, within 9 miles of top descent, I'm going to go take over the VNAV. And I'm curious to see what it does. It's not really doing anything, which is what I expect, because we're not at top of descent yet. I am curious about its calculated descent profile, because we basically need to lose, well, I guess that's about right, 30... It's about 30 miles to the next thing. We got to lose 13,000 feet. No, that's not right. 13 times 3 is going to be more than 30. Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with the top of descent calculations doing here. Unless it's treating, actually that would give it away. No, it sees that as a hard altitude, which is not. It should be a between altitude. Unless it's just displaying it that way. No, it's seeing that I don't think it can do betweens. I think it can either treat it as a hard altitude, an above altitude, or below altitude. I think that's a limitation. Alright, it started to go down, and it's going down about 3,000 feet a minute. So we're going to pull some power back here. Try to hold that 280 knots thing. Let's see if we can get down to 190 by schism. Oh, see there it's doing that. Let's jump up again. Yeah, that's a weird bug with the VNAV, I think. I do not like that. I think that's might be a programming error that they need to figure out. This does appear to be our vertical path. Let's watch this and see if this does something funny when it, because it's going to do that again. It's definitely going to jump again on me. Now let's see what happens when it does. Nope, there it goes. It dips way down and then. Well, actually, that it chased that vertical path right up above the thing. It's like there's a burple in the vertical path. That's really weird. Alright, well, it looks like it's going to get us there on the right timing. I don't know why it keeps bopping us up and down like that, though. That's just a really weird reaction that I am not a fan of. If it were me, I'd be switching over to, well, actually, I'm curious. Let's try it. I'm going to switch over to Descend. So it's got, you notice it's got them both highlighted now. It has Descend and VNAV. I don't know what that means. I'm wondering if that is holding the current... Well, no, because it pitched down to something. Watch the vertical deviation here, because it's slowly rising up. It looks like we're going down into... Oh, no. Oh, it's still doing the purple thing. Interesting. Okay. Let's turn the VNAV off and go straight Descend. So it's reconfiguring itself. It went back into like level off for a second, but it's going back into descent mode, I think. It doesn't descend very quickly though. And I don't know if you can increase the descent, because there's no place to really do that. It seems like descend is just 1,000 feet per minute, which is kind of lame. So in that case, what we would do is we would unclip the descent, we'd go into vertical speed, and we would manually dial down the vertical speed to be closer to 2,000. And what we'll do is we'll try to match the guide here with our speed. So we would have actually made that crossing. We just passed Schism a little high, but we would have made it if I'd let the VNAV do its thing, because we were on target, and then it leveled off when I switched to descent only mode to 1,000 feet per minute. So we'll chalk up for it. It does track the path quite well, but it does that weird bump up every now and then, which I don't like. Okay, we're going to lower the descent a little bit more, try and find that spot. Let's get our Oakland altimeter setting. 2987. Okay. And the next spot here, my rib, we've got a 240 knot restriction. We got to be between 10,000 and 9,000. So we have to slow down too. So we want to definitely make sure we get back on that profile dot there. So what could be cool here is, because we've got the VNAV path here, it could be a lot easier to kind of manually take control, not have the VNAV do weird, stupid things, but still be able to maintain our path without having to like stare at this thing, which would be nice. Zoom this in a little bit as we're getting close. I'm going to pull the speed back because we're increasing speed now when we're doing that. Zoom this in a little bit as well. What's the ILS frequency for 30? It is 1087, so we'll dial that in here. And I'll put it over here as well. Although there's no reason I need to do that now because I can just put this onto. Although it's better if I do it this way. So let's go course. Let's nav 2, and it should be 296. There we go. Okay, so we're actually a little bit above it now, which is, I mean, below path, which is good because I want to reach. I want to be able to level off and slow down. We're doing 260 knots. We gotta lose 20 knots. So as soon as we hit 10,000, I'm gonna dial the vertical speed back up here. Then we're legal. But we're right on top of my rib here, so there we go. Dial that back up. Well, we were within 10 knots and we crossed it, so huzzah. All right, next waypoint. Slow down too much if I'm not careful. 7,000 at my knee. So just let this thing kind of come down slowly. We're a little under path, which is better than the opposite. And that's a 200 knot restriction at my knees, so actually I'm going to keep the speed down a little bit. Let's slow down even further. Let's open up this guy and go to our landing section. And we're going to pull in. That's fun. Okay, I don't care. Oh, it doesn't. Oh, this is fun. It doesn't know our speeds. Probably because it doesn't have Q and H. Can I just do it? 2987. Hey! Amazing. Alright. Yeah, so you just can't pull it in. That's weird. Okay. Still going towards 7. Slow us down a little bit. Try to do this as I'm doing this. Wind is 290 at 9. That's close enough. And then this was 2987, and temperature is 19. Okay, so I got all that. So we'll set our speeds. Not going to worry about the EPers because we're not going to be near the maxes anyway. All right, here comes 7,000. And again, I'm just manually doing this with the VNAV. There's 200 knots. Increase power. That's not bad. All right. And down we go. For meeting the 6,200 restriction at my shin. And then we're going to take over with the ILS here. Which is 62, and then 5,000 to my calf, 4,400 to Frenny. Speed's going to be our discretion. Let's go. Flaps 2. This is where doing it this way with a lot of steps downs, this is kind of difficult, but hey, I'm doing this, I'm manually controlling vertical speed and power, and we're like right on the money as far as, I mean, there's 62, we're right around 200, which is what I wanted to be at, and we're just coming up into my shin right now. There's the turn. That should be executing here. So now we can go down to 5,000. And we can even do this as a vertical down and hold. So I keep doing it this way, but they don't need to do it this way. So we can go down 1,000 feet, a little more than 1,000 feet per minute, and then do altitude hold, and it'll hold that when it gets there. And then all we have to do is control the speed. That'll lighten the load a little bit. It's showing we're below path, which, I mean, I guess. I don't know how much we're below path, though. That's the other thing. Speed's coming up a little bit. We'll watch that. Let's go landing lights, taxi lights, and turn off lights. Nothing really needs to happen back here, so that's fine. So after my calf, we'll go down to 44, and I'm getting these right now basically off the minimum altitudes on these sectors. So we don't have to be at these altitudes, but you might as well be, because the Bay Area, as we level off, increase the power so we don't slip into a death thing. So this is going to go to 44 now. Okay, and we're going to go back to vertical down. Oh, no, we're going to take it off altitude mode first. Vertical down. Power back. And auto. So that way it'll capture that. Oh yeah, we're not far off path. We're in the ball game. We're in the ballpark. All right, at this turn, what we'll do is I'm going to sync up the heading to be pretty much right where we need to be, and then we can go over and move this mode into localizer capture, into nav 1. And we'll go down to 27. Take it off of that. Oops. Pull this down. Power out. Flaps 5. Alright, we're going to change.
Line slope 5.
Yep, I know. Nav 1, there we go, and we're going to go approach. Alright, Vorlock, so we got localizer capture, and we should get glide slope capture here in a second. We're coming from above it, which is not great, but it's fine, we'll survive. There's glide slope capture. So glide slope, so we're on everything now. Beautiful. Flaps 15, gear down. Auto brake to minimum. Speed brake armed. Now you would normally get a speed brake armed light here. The way my hardware is interfacing with this, it's actually doing it, but it's not triggering that for some reason. Oh man, we're losing out speed fast. Hang on. Saw that going down the speed tape all of a sudden. Try not to die. We got 2 more notches of flaps to go, 25 and 30. Yeah, so you see we are our radio altimeter right here. Then we also have the steam gauge version. Let's go Flap 25. Back some more. Let's get below that bug. I want to be fully configured by 1,000 feet. We're at 1,700 right now. We only got one more notch of flaps to go and we'll be fully configured. And we're established. So there we go. Flaps 30. Power up as we hit that approach bug. Do not want to get slow in the 2.7 because we're tail weighted, so it'll become a self-fulfilling prophecy and we'll just die by pitching up too hard. And that is not good. I'm also going to find out if my my autopilot kill command works now. So I had to revamp it. I'm not sure if it does. Okay, there's about 1,000. Yeah, it does. I have to manually do that though. I need to trigger that in somehow. Okay, so we're on manual control. And we're getting a little bit above the glide slope here. Yeah, a little fast. So at this point, it should have that higher idle thrust, although I'm not sitting at idle on the throttles anyway, but if I did... Look all the way down the runway. That'll help you get lined up. And then aim a little bit short of the main aim points, so that way we don't fly too far past them. Power out. Reverse. Forward. Maybe. Reverse not engaging. Why not engaging? Nope. Nope. It says it's engaging. My reverse lights are not showing engaged. Interesting. So I don't know if they're actually working or not. Strange. They worked before. I don't know what's going on there. I feel like I don't have any reverse. But we have auto brake. That was a very nice landing other than that. And then the reverse not seeming to work. Curious. Oh yeah, reverse is not deploying. Interesting. Wonder why. It worked before. All right, so you know, like I said, the 7.2 here is a beta. It is not finished. This is not final product. This is not necessarily what will ship to you guys. Hopefully in about a week. I am forwarding on all the little tiny things I find to the devs to try and get as much corrected before release as possible. Nothing releases without bugs, so lower your expectations. If your expectation is bugless software release, I'm sorry, but you're always going to be disappointed because there's no such thing in anything. But hopefully the idea is we squash as many as possible. But eventually they want to release it so you guys can start playing with it, and then they'll squash the remaining bugs. And some bugs won't come out because it takes a lot of people to fly in different phases and different options and different situations to find certain things. So they find as many as they can, they give it to us, we start to find some more things, and then they give it to all of you, and we'll find even more things. So that's just the process. That's how it works. We all work together to try to make a really nice 727 product so we can all enjoy it. What you find, please report. Doesn't mean it'll be fixed immediately, but at least then it'll be on the list. Otherwise, all told, I think this is in a really nice state considering what we got here. It flies really nicely still. The systems work really well. The only thing that I think is a little funky is the VNAV. And again, I don't know how much of that is my ignorance with using it versus an actual problem. Although I can't imagine that weird little burple up and down every once in a while is legit in any way, shape, or form. So that I feel is something that is probably a weird programming error bug or something, I'm guessing. But yeah. And it did that on the VNAV on the climb out too, so it wasn't just in descent. So I think that's just, it seems to just do it every so often. There's probably even a time interval. If I timed it, it'd probably be the same interval. Be my guess. Let's see, as we're here, oops, need to get the APU up and running. That way it's running by the time we get to the parking stage. I gotta find out why my reversers didn't deploy. Because they were deploying yesterday. So that's strange. Will they deploy now? Nope. 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 Suddenly my reverser's not working. Very weird. That's probably a my hardware and programming thing. That's probably not the plane, because nothing really changed in the plane between yesterday and now. I probably broke something and didn't realize I broke it. Although what is weird is they are going up. Oh, now it worked. When I look at them, you little turds. Of course, they have this habit of sticking in reverse. This is a thing on my end because I haven't figured out how to. Come on, get out of. There we go. Okay, I need you. Now it doesn't want to come out of reverse. That's hilarious. Okay, there's that. Okay. Close. See, it's saying it's coming out of reverse, but they're not closing. There we go. It's like it's just not going to the stop all the way. I gotta figure out what's causing that. Okay. Yeah, this is totally my hardware doing this. This is not the plane, so. I left the reverse binds from the other 727-200 because they seem to work, but they've been doing this weird thing where they don't like to release, and I didn't mess with it. I just thought, it'll be fine. And now it's worse. So, yeah. Alright, APU is up and running. We can go ahead and open up the APU bleeds. APU engine 2 bleeds. We're going to park over here at the FedEx area. I guess this is all FedEx area. I have a particular one I go to. And I'm trying to remember, I want to say it's like 47 or something. No, it's none of those actually. It's It's F16, that's it. Because, yeah, 47, that sounds like that. There was a F sound from the F. I know this was long, and it's because I didn't have time to plan this out. I just had to do it because I'm going on vacation tomorrow, and I wanted to get something out there. And so this was kind of, like I said, it's a bit of a first look, and hey, if you've never flown the 727 before, here's some basic how to fly it. So hopefully this gets you going. You can reference this. Like I said, I'm making a big advanced tutorial series like I did for the MD-80 and the MD-11 with this. So once that comes out, that will replace this video essentially and the other 727 tutorial I have. So alright, parking brake is set. We're on APU. We can go ahead and close the generator, and that will trip off the bus. And with that, I will close down a number of the pumps. We'll open up all of the bleeds. We'll close that down. That goes to ground. And packs stay on. We'll go ahead and close the window heats and turn off the pitos. And we'll chop the edges. And we have the dome light. Alright, we have arrived. I'll tell GSX to request the D-board. That should bring the stairs and the things, and it'll actually start to open up the cargo door automatically, which is kind of cool. Close that. Alright, Super 27. It's going to be cool. I anticipate, my guess, they wanted to release it before the end of September. My guess will be sometime this next week. Will probably be released. I don't have any inside information other than the fact that I already have this airplane. And the last time they did this, where they gave it to people, it was like within a week or two it came out. So I'm just basing it on history, how this company tends to operate. Once they give it to the content creators, they're pretty much done with it. They're just looking for some final things before they pass it on to you guys. And then they'll continue to bug fix. Don't worry. They're not by any means saying this is the final product and what bugs it has, and tough cookies. So enjoy it. I know I will when I come back from vacation, because this is a lot of fun, and I want to dive more into the fancy systems here. But it is a beauty. It's got tons of power, and so yeah, you should have some fun with this. That's going to do it for me. Check me out over on Twitch. Not this next week, obviously, because I'll be on vacation. This is the end of September. But over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Mustafa. You can also follow me on Instagram, on Twitter, or X, I guess it's called now, and Facebook as well. I'm on all three of those platforms. But also ultimately, join the Discord if you want to join the conversation and have a lot of fun that way. Also, the stream schedule is posted over on Discord. All the main alerts that you need to be aware of are over on Discord. That's really where you need to go. You need to be on Discord. So the link over there is in the video description as well. Leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. And hope to see you over on Twitch for some live streams. And we'll be looking forward to flying this bird over on the live streams. Hopefully soon, because I'm going on vacation. I can't do it until I get back. So, but I am free to stream it already. So anyway, this was fun. It's a cool aircraft. Go fly the heck out of it as soon as it comes out. Take care, everybody. We'll see you.